Katie knew the truth, and that truth burned like wildfire through her conscience. Luna was alive. Everything she thought she knew, everything she believed about Luna's fate was a lie. A cruel, calculated deception wrapped in forged papers and false testimonies. Lee, the one they trusted, the doctor, the mother figure, had orchestrated it all. The betrayal was not just personal, it was criminal. Katie didn't hesitate. She picked up the phone and called the police, her voice steady, her heart raging. Her decision wasn't born of revenge, but of justice and protection. Protection for Luna. Protection for every life manipulated by Lee's actions. The accusations came fast. Document forgery, attempted murder, obstruction of justice. But even as the handcuffs locked around Lee's wrists, the storm had only begun. Katie's confession to the authorities unraveled a web of lies thicker than anyone expected. The hospital records, the falsified death certificate, the staged disappearance all pointed directly to Lee. Her motivations were layered, a toxic cocktail of jealousy, control, and misguided maternal instinct. But the law didn't care about psychology, it cared about the facts. And the facts were damning. Still, the real chaos ignited when Thomas re-entered the picture. Thomas Forrester, charismatic, sharp, and always playing a game no one else could fully see. Didn't just discover that Luna was alive, he engineered the moment of her rescue. He arrived just before the authorities could take Luna into protective custody. To everyone watching, he was the knight in shining armor. But inside, behind the charm and comforting words, was strategy. Cold, methodical strategy. Luna, disoriented and emotionally wrecked after her ordeal, clung to Thomas's presence like a lifeline. He understood her. He listened. He made her feel safe in a world that had betrayed her. But Thomas saw something more, an opportunity. Luna wasn't just a victim, she was a pawn. A way to destabilize the one person he believed had always stood in his way, Brooke Logan. Brooke, the ever-resilient matriarch, had long held power and influence within the Forrester family. Her connection to Ridge, her sway over decisions, her ability to always land on her feet at Grayred on Thomas. And now, with Luna unknowingly in his debt, he had the perfect emotional weapon. He didn't need to manipulate her with lies, not yet. He just needed to keep her close, keep her confused, keep her emotionally dependent. As Luna tried to piece her life back together, the cracks in her psyche began to widen. The trauma of what Lee had done raising her only to erase her left her in a constant state of internal chaos. She had questions, fears, and no one to fully trust except Thomas. He became her anchor, her mirror, her guide, but never her equal. He never let her fully heal, always offering just enough reassurance to keep her tethered to him. Katie, meanwhile, watched all of this unfold from a distance, tormented by guilt. She had done the right thing, she told herself, exposing Lee, saving Luna. But something was wrong. Luna wasn't herself. And Thomas's sudden closeness, too convenient, too perfect. She tried to warn Brooke, but Brooke brushed it off. She had her own problems, Ridge had grown distant, hope was spiraling again. And now Thomas was acting like a changed man. Brooke wanted to believe him. But Katie saw it clearly. Thomas wasn't rehabilitated, he was evolving. Smarter, more patient, more dangerous. Behind closed doors, Thomas's true plan emerged. He began planting ideas in Luna's mind, subtle at first. That Brooke had manipulated Ridge. That she saw Luna as a liability, not a victim. That Brooke was the reason Lee snapped, the reason Luna's life was nearly destroyed. He twisted facts, omitted truths, and let Luna draw her own conclusions. And slowly, the seeds took root. Luna, isolated and emotionally raw, began to question everything, including Katie's motives. Thomas's endgame was simple: discredit Brooke, destabilize her relationships, and reclaim control over the Forrester narrative. Luna was just the beginning. He orchestrated chance encounters where Luna would overhear Brooke discussing her, always in ways that sounded judgmental when taken out of context. He faked text messages, engineered misunderstandings, and staged emotional outbursts to make Brooke look erratic. But Brooke wasn't blind. She began to feel the tension in the room whenever Luna entered, the coldness in her eyes, the way Thomas hovered just out of reach, always watching. When she confronted him, Thomas denied everything, acting shocked and hurt. "I'm only trying to help her, Brooke. She's been through hell." But Brooke had been manipulated before. This time, she wouldn't go quietly. As tensions escalated, Luna found herself torn. She began having dreams, fragments of memory, voices, pieces of what really happened the night Lee tried to disappear her. Thomas was always there, guiding her through her confusion, but the dreams weren't aligning with his narrative. She started to pull away, quietly, trying to understand what was real. Meanwhile, Lee sat in jail, awaiting trial. She refused to speak to anyone but Luna, and even then, only cryptic messages came through. "You're not safe," she told her. "They're using you." At first, Luna dismissed it as more manipulation. But the doubt was growing. Luna visited Lee once more, and this time, she asked the question no one else had. "Why?" And Lee, broken and bitter, whispered, "Because they were going to take you. Brooke, Katie, they never saw you as a daughter. Just leverage." The words echoed in Luna's mind as she returned to the Forrester estate. Everything around her felt tainted. The glances, the gestures, the way conversations stopped when she entered the room. She confronted Thomas. "Am I just leverage?" He looked hurt. He looked shocked. But he didn't answer. And that was the answer. Katie, desperate to protect Luna from spiraling further, reached out again. She told her the full truth about Lee's crimes, about the evidence, about how Thomas had appeared too suddenly, too smoothly. She begged Luna to see the pattern. But Luna was tired. Tired of being told what to feel. Tired of being someone else's victim, pawn, or project. She disappeared. For days, no one knew where she went. Not even Thomas. And that scared him more than he let on. He searched. He sent messages. He tried to track her phone. All dead ends. Meanwhile, Brooke used the opportunity to push back, confronting Ridge about Thomas's behavior, about the patterns repeating. Ridge resisted. He wanted to believe his son had changed. But even he couldn't ignore the signs anymore. Then Luna reappeared at a press conference, no less flanked by lawyers, media, and a boldness no one had seen in her before. She spoke the truth about Lee, about Thomas, about everything. Not in anger, not in vengeance, but in clarity. She exposed the manipulation, the gaslighting, the quiet control. And she did it on her own terms. Thomas watched in silence as everything unraveled. His plan, his leverage, his control gone. And for the first time, he wasn't angry. He was stunned. He had underestimated her. And in that miscalculation, he lost everything he'd built. But it didn't end there. Luna pressed charges of emotional coercion. The Forrester family was thrown into chaos. Ridge was forced to make a choice: protect his son or protect the brand. Brooke, vindicated, held the moral high ground but was emotionally drained. Katie finally found peace in knowing she had tried to do the right thing, even when it nearly cost her everything. Lee's trial proceeded, now with Luna's testimony on the record. The court saw the truth, not just of Lee's actions, but of a family system that enabled silence for the sake of legacy. In the end, no one was left unscarred. But Luna was no longer a victim. She was a survivor. And for the first time, she was free not just from Lee, or Thomas, or the Forresters, but from the fear that had defined her story. She was writing her own now, and everyone else had to live with it. Thomas showed up just in time. The interrogation room at the police station was dim, sterile, and emotionally suffocating. Luna, exhausted and shaken, was facing questions she wasn't ready to answer. Questions about where she had been, who had helped her, what she remembered. The officers were persistent. Their tone wasn't cruel, but their suspicion was thick in the air. Just as things began to spiral, Thomas Forrester stepped in smooth, composed, and armed with legal support. His presence changed everything. Luna wasn't charged. She was released into his care. And from the outside, it looked like a miracle. But Thomas didn't do miracles. He did moves. In the car ride back, silence reigned. Luna, though grateful, felt an unease she couldn't name. Thomas, on the other hand, was already planting the next seed. You're safe now, but we need to talk. The gratitude Luna felt slowly morphed into obligation. Thomas reminded her gently but pointedly that her freedom had come at a cost, and he intended to collect. His target was clear, Brooke Logan. Thomas believed that Brooke was the source of imbalance in his family. Her influence over Ridge, her moral superiority, her control over every major turning point in the Forrester legacy, it all sickened him. And now, with Luna emotionally vulnerable and mentally fractured, he saw the perfect opportunity. He didn't need to manipulate her forcefully. He just had to guide her, shape the narrative, make her see what he saw, Brooke as a manipulator, Brooke as the real threat. Luna didn't agree, but she didn't say no. Not immediately. Thomas played on her uncertainty. You want justice for what was done to you, don't you? Brooke and Katie, they protected Lee. They turned their backs on you. I didn't. The words weren't fully false. That made them more dangerous. Luna found herself trapped between gratitude and dread. She owed Thomas, or so he made her believe. So she stayed close. She listened. She didn't push back. Yet, Poppy, Luna's mother, felt the shift before anyone else. Luna's calls became shorter, her tone more withdrawn. There was something in her voice, an echo of someone who wasn't thinking for themselves. Poppy had watched her daughter suffer too much already, and now she feared Luna had traded one cage for another. She flew back to LA, unannounced, and started asking questions. But Thomas was 3 steps ahead. He kept Luna isolated, wrapped in a sense of false control. He wasn't cruel. That was the trick. He was patient, attentive, always nearby, always understanding. He didn't demand action. He suggested it. Maybe you should talk to Hope about what Brooke did. See what she says. Luna, unsure of her own mind, agreed. Hope, meanwhile, had been observing quietly. Thomas had changed, or so she thought. But there were signs she couldn't ignore. The way he always knew where Luna was. How he spoke for her, over her. How Luna's energy changed around him, tense, hesitant, filtered. Hope had seen this before. She'd lived it. She began keeping notes, tracking behavior, watching interactions. And though she still wanted to believe Thomas was trying to be better, she couldn't shake the suspicion that something darker was resurfacing. It all came to a head one evening at Forrester Creations. Thomas had orchestrated a scenario where Luna would accidentally overhear Brooke questioning her loyalty. But Luna didn't react the way he expected. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She stayed quiet, then excused herself. Thomas assumed his plan had worked. He didn't know Luna had started recording. She had been documenting conversations for days. Something inside her, maybe her survival instinct, maybe just a flicker of her old self, told her to stop trusting blindly. So she kept her phone nearby, captured the manipulations, the subtle threats, the moments when Thomas revealed his true intentions. She was still scared, but now she had something real, something powerful. She went to Hope first. Not Katie, not Brooke. Hope. Hope listened to the recordings. Her face went white. Her heart broke in two. She had defended Thomas to everyone, even to herself. She had believed in him. And now the proof was in her hands. Cold, calculated manipulation. Exploiting a trauma victim. Engineering takedowns from the shadows. She knew what she had to do. Hope organized a family meeting. She kept the agenda vague. Brooke, Ridge, Steffi, Carter, they all showed. And then Thomas walked in with Luna, still thinking he controlled the narrative. Hope played the recordings. No one spoke for a long time. The room froze. Thomas tried to explain, but there was nothing left to spin. The tone of his voice in the recordings was unmistakable. This wasn't protection. This wasn't care. It was orchestration. Brooke sat silently, eyes fixed on her stepson. Ridge's jaw tightened. Steffi looked away. Luna stood up. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just looked at him and said, "I'm not your pawn." Then she left the room. Thomas didn't follow. He stood in the wreckage of his own making. Hope looked at him, devastated. "You were doing so well," she whispered. "Why go back?" He had no answer. Not one that could fix anything. Brooke, though shaken, made a choice that surprised everyone. She didn't retaliate. She didn't press charges or push for exile. She simply said, "I'm done being your obsession," and walked out. For Thomas, that hurt more than punishment. Ridge didn't say much. He just looked at his son with tired eyes and said, "You need help." And then he left too. Days passed. Luna stayed with Poppy, trying to rebuild herself from the inside out. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want justice anymore. She wanted peace. Thomas, meanwhile, descended into a quiet war with himself. No more grand schemes. No more manipulation. Just silence, regret, confusion. For the first time in his life, no one else was the villain. Just him. And that was a prison no one could rescue him from.